It's 3:12 a.m. The room is dark, except for one thing. A glowing screen. Lines of code scroll past as someone sits completely still, focused, locked in. Hours pass, but to them, it feels like minutes. No distractions, no noise, just logic and flow. And then suddenly, it clicks. The bug disappears. The system works. Everything aligns. And in that moment, it feels like magic. But what does it actually feel like to be a coding genius? At first glance, coding looks like typing, just words on a screen. But for someone deeply skilled, it's not typing, it's thinking in systems. Coding geniuses don't just see code, they see structure, flow, cause and effect. When they look at a program, they're not reading line by line, they're visualizing how everything connects, almost like watching a machine run inside their head. Research from cognitive science shows that experienced programmers rely heavily on mental models, internal representations of how systems behave. Instead of memorizing syntax, they simulate the program mentally, which means when something breaks, they don't just guess, they trace it, like following a path through a maze. And this is where things start to feel different, because coding isn't just logic, it's problem-solving under uncertainty. You're often staring at something that doesn't work, no clear answer, no obvious fix, just a problem, and your job is to figure it out. At first, this feels frustrating, but over time, it becomes addictive, because every bug is a puzzle, and every solution is a reward. Neuroscience shows that solving problems triggers a release of dopamine, the same chemical involved in motivation and reward. That's why programmers often describe debugging as strangely satisfying. It's not just fixing code, it's solving a mystery. But here's where it gets intense. Coding geniuses don't just solve problems faster, they enter something called flow state, a mental state where focus is absolute, time feels distorted, distractions disappear. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described flow as a state of complete immersion in a task, and coding is one of the easiest ways to enter it, because it constantly balances challenge and skill. Not too easy, not too hard, just enough to keep your brain fully engaged. In flow, hours feel like minutes. You forget to check your phone, you forget to eat. Sometimes, you forget everything except the problem in front of you. And when you finally solve it, there's a rush, a deep sense of satisfaction, like everything just makes sense. But here's something most people don't see. Coding geniuses spend a lot of time being stuck, completely stuck, looking at the same problem for hours, trying different approaches, failing, trying again. There's even a concept in programming called rubber duck debugging, where developers explain their code out loud to an object just to understand what's going wrong, which sounds ridiculous, but it works. Because coding isn't just about knowledge, it's about clarity of thought. And this leads to something interesting. Over time, coding changes how you think. You start breaking everything down into steps, inputs, and outputs. If this happens, then that happens, even outside of programming. Everyday problems start to feel like algorithms. Studies have shown that learning programming improves computational thinking, the ability to decompose problems and recognize patterns, which is why many programmers approach life differently, more structured, more analytical, sometimes too analytical. Because here's the downside. When your brain is always solving problems, it doesn't always switch off. You might find yourself overanalyzing situations, thinking in logic instead of emotion, struggling to just relax. And sometimes, that can feel exhausting. There's also another challenge. Coding can be isolating. You spend long periods alone, focused, thinking, building things that exist only in your mind until they work. And while that's powerful, it can also feel lonely. But despite all of that, there's something unique about it, because coding gives you something rare, the ability to create. From nothing, an idea in your head can become a real system, an app, a game,
a tool used by thousands or millions, and that feeling? It's hard to describe. So what does it feel like to be a coding genius? It feels like solving puzzles all day, like getting stuck and unstuck, like thinking in systems instead of words.